Well, I just want to greet everybody and say, here we are again. How the hell did this happen? But it's lovely to look out and see so many old demented faces that I remember from the past, and new demented faces that I've never seen before. So let's welcome all the new ones here, shall we? And would all of those who are here for the first time stand up? Oh my God. Hey, great. Now, sooner or later, we'll want all of you to say something. Give us the names of all your previous wives and things like that. So think of what you'd like to say. Maybe not today, maybe tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Tomorrow. And, a little bit so we get a sense of, don't talk about your successes. Your disasters are always helpful. Is that right? And all of us up here have got a lot of them, and we'll fill in if you run short.
We'll share them with you, yeah.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. So what we'll do this morning is I'll do a few Hafez and poems and maybe one Stafford poem just for kicks. And then Melodoma will give a talk. We'll introduce him when that time comes. And then we'll have a break. And then at around 10:45 or so, Danny and Martin will do a story. Is that right? Poem.
That's it.
A long poem, yeah.
Very long poem.
All right. You've all met these characters up here? Yeah. All right, so I'm glad to see you all again. I have a house up in Moose Lake, and so I was up there yesterday for the first time in several months. Very sweet and very wonderful. I love the mood around here, the wet. And the feeling of a lot of unsuccessful people all over. Right? Out in the country, everywhere, In the city, they're all pretending to be successful. It's sort of a bore. Anyway. So this is a sort of a celebration because it's the first one we've had since this book came out, with the angels knocking on the tavern door, and a man from England, Leonard Lewison, and I spent 14 years doing this. And he teaches, so he'd fly over in the summer for 2 or 3 weeks, and we'd sit in the dining room and drive my wife mad while we worked on all of these things. But his father was the Leonard Lewison who went to the North Pole. So Hafez is the North Pole of poetry. And we know almost nothing about him. I mean, Rumi is a lightweight compared to this one. That's from the Iranian's point of view. So, they have a tradition of poetry going back 1,200 years or so. And the Zoroastrians were there in Iran before the Muslims. Then the Muslims came in, and what do you do about that? You're a poet, and it's 14. Well, if you attack the Muslims, you won't live long. But if you ignore your old Zoroastrian fathers, you won't live long either. You understand what I'm saying? So that makes the poetry of Iran tremendously dangerous and touchy, and a lot of people get hung or killed there writing poetry. So, and there's a lot of propaganda in the United States against Iran. Bush doesn't even know where the fucking place is, but he hates it anyway. So when Coleman and I visited Iran, we visited Tehran, we were walking around the street, and people recognized us immediately as Americans. And they'd say, oh, we love Americans, we love Americans. And that's a general feeling. Iran feels that it's the United States of that area. And disorganized, brilliant, insane. They got a little longer history than we do, but they're willing to forgive us. So then Hafez comes along, and he took all of the work that had been done on the ghazal, or the gazelle, over 1,000 years. And just a couple of things on the gazelle. It's a completely different form. We never used it in the United States or in the East, in the West. You're given 36 syllables to say what you have to say. And that's enough. Then you have to change the subject for the next stanza. And if only Milton had done that, we'd been a lot better off. And this is anti-Miltonic movement here. Just stop your fucking talk, will you? Get to the next thing. So that's a brilliant thing already. And they use, in some of the Near Eastern languages, they can put 18 syllables in one line, so they'll have a 2-line stanza for making 36. But we can't do it in English. About 12 and 13 is a maximum. So I use 3 12-line, 3 12 syllable lines. Then another quality is that it doesn't rhyme, but when it's fully developed, every stanza ends with the same word. So if you've got 7 stanzas, you've got 7 different subjects, and your talk about it ends with the same word. You feel the stress of that? And the beauty of that. What of all these, when you understand me? And then in the last stanza, the poet mentions his or her own name. And that was done because they didn't publish at all in those days. Everything was done by memorization. So therefore, someone would write a poem in Tehran, and it would be read, 800 miles later, 2 weeks later. And so the only thing to do is to mention the name. Rumi is simply someone who lives in the city of Rum. But by putting it, he identifies it as his poem. And that's the way the memorization, and everything was done by memorization, held for 600-700 years by memorization. So just think what that would mean. We don't care about it. We just pick up our book in college and read the poems. And it's too easy. You follow me? It's too damn easy. Besides, you can't really take in a poem until you brought it inside and memorized it and hold it in your heart, and it'll appear in strange moments of your life. Making love to someone else's wife, you'll suddenly remember a few lines. That's very helpful. Anyway, are you ready for a poem by Hafez?
Yeah.
One rosy face from the world's garden for us is enough. One rosy face from the world's garden for us is enough. In the shade of that one cypress in the field, strolling along there gracefully for us is enough. So you rhyme the first and the third, and then you get to know what your rhyme word is. Second thing, I want to be far away from people whose words and deeds don't match. Among the morose and heavy-hearted, a heavy glass of wine for us is enough. I want to be far away from people whose words and deeds don't match. You know what he's talking about? Be in college and listen to your college teacher. The words and the deeds don't match. You follow me? I want to be far away from people whose words and deeds don't match. Among the some morose and heavy-hearted, a heavy glass of wine for us is enough. Most people say that, some people say that good deeds will earn them a gated house in heaven. Being rakes and natural beggars, a room in the tavern for us is enough. That's a beautiful bowing out of all of that. Some people say that good deeds will earn them a gated house in heaven. Being rakes and natural beggars, a room in the tavern for us is enough. Sit down beside the stream sometime and watch life flow past. That brief hint of this world that passes by so swiftly for us is enough. Give me a little drum. Sit down beside a stream sometime and watch life flow past. That brief hint of this world that passes by so swiftly for us is enough. That brief hint of this world that passes by so swiftly for us is enough. Look at the flow of money and the suffering of the world. You see how he jumps right in? Look at the flow of money and the suffering of the world. If the glimpse of profit and loss is not enough for you, for us, it's enough. Look at the flow of money and the suffering of the world. If this glimpse of profit and loss is not enough for you, for us, it's enough. The dearest companion of all is here. What else is there to look for? The delight of a few words with the soul friend for us is enough. So that's the tradition in which you look for a soul friend, often male. It's not exactly a love affair, it's a soul friend. How many of you got a soul friend? Those that don't have a soul friend have to start looking around. Because after you die, you'll get to the gate and they say, have you got a soul friend? No? Okay, go fuck back. In a place like this, sometimes you can find a soul friend here. That's happened. Then you want to look out at the friends you have and decide which one of them you want to make a soul friend. Well. The dearest companion of all is here. What else is there to look for? The delight of a few words with the soul friend for us is enough. Don't send me away from your door, O God, even to paradise. Don't send me away from your door, O God, even to paradise. Your alleyway, compared to all space and time, for us is enough. And he calls this world the alleyway. It's okay. Okay. Don't send me away from your door, O God, even to paradise. Your alleyway, compared to all space and time, for us is enough. Last stanza. It's inappropriate, Hafez, for you to complain of your gifts from fate. Your nature is like water. Your beautifully flowing poems for us are enough. It's inappropriate, Hafez, for you to complain of your gifts from fate. Your nature is like water. Your beautifully flowing poems for us are enough. You get a feeling of him? And, you know, our country is pitiful in its relation to poetry. In Iran, there will be, you know, like they have an I Ching on the table here, and if your kid is going to go to Bennington, you check the I Ching to see if that's the right thing. For them, it's a book of Hafez on the table, on the dining room table. Whenever one of the children is going to get married, they check Hafez, see what he says. They open it, he'll know. Don't worry about it. Isn't that right? Besides, you can't understand a damn thing he says, so you have to interpret it. That's even better. You know, bad poetry is something you can understand. We got a lot of that. They teach that at the universities. You want two poems more? What you going to get, whether you want them or not? When the one I love accepts the wine, then the shop of the false idols collapses. When the one whom I love accepts the wine, I don't know what that is. Some way in which you get a little hints from the other world that you're on the right track. Do your meditation in the morning. One of your kids comes up and kisses you. It's not an accident. When the one whom I love accepts the wine, then the shops of the false idols collapses. I have dropped in a heap on the earth, crying, in the hope that I'll feel the touch of his hand. So this is a culture in which I think it's good for you to throw your book on the ground and start crying. I have dropped in a heap on the earth, crying, in the hope that I will feel the touch of his hand. I have fallen like a fish in deep water, in the hope that the friend will catch me in his net. I have fallen like a fish in deep water, in the hope that the friend, capitalized, will catch me in his net. So I don't know what to say about that. There's that tradition that someone is looking out for us. You have a soul friend. You have a soul friend in this world, and you have some other friend of another kind in another world. And sometimes you're walking down the street and you're worrying about something. You look in the window, and there's an advertisement that gives you the answer to your question. You know what I mean? These weird, strange things happen. I have fallen like a fish into deep water in the hope that the friend will catch me in his net. Whoever looks into his luminous eyes cries, "Someone is already drunk, get the police." Whoever looks into his luminous eyes cries, "Someone is already drunk, get the police." How blessed is the man who, like Hafez, has tasted in his heart the wine made before Adam. Boy, that line just stretches out. Whoa. How blessed is the man who, like Hafez, has tasted in his heart the wine made before Adam. Before Adam. You all understand how that feels? Sometimes you have that feeling. I've tasted something today.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. Tell me. Oh, yes. Go on.
You don't hear it?
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. It's right here. It's right here.
It's in the air. Right here.
Here. This is Melodoma for those of you who haven't met him. This is Melodoma. Even his drum is intelligent. You want one more poem? We'll still stick with Hafez here. Thank you for playing. And do it some more if you feel like it.
All right.
Do not sink into sadness. And this is the first poem of his I translated, I think, and I worked on it a long time. And I'm a Capricorn, so we tend to go into sadness a lot. We tend to get stuck there. So as far as the cheerful poets, I don't give a damn about it. They can live or die, I don't care. If a poet doesn't have some kind of depression or sadness, forget it. So, how many are Capricorns in this room? Yeah, there are other signs also that have a lot of depression in them. Yeah, Capricorns are the noisy ones. So there's a certain time in your life, I don't think it matters what your sign, there's a certain time in your life, maybe you're 28 or 30 or 35 or 40, in which you feel that you'll never get out of this depression you're in. And this poem is dedicated to that, to the awareness of that's in our bodies all the time. And as you probably found out, drinking is not a very good way to get rid of that sense. It'll just send, you'll end up an old fart drunk. That's what it says. Are we ready to go? Am I talking too much?
No. Hell no.
Hell no. Okay. Joseph the lost will return. That's how they use these stories. It's so fantastic. Joseph the lost will return. A great idea. Joseph the lost will return. Jacob should not sink into sadness. Those who sit in the grief house will eventually sit in the garden. Those who sit in the grief house will eventually sit in the garden. I think that's very much related to everything we do here around here. To learn to accept the grief of your life, knowing that you'll eventually sit in the garden. But not until you've been depressed for a while or until you wept enough. I don't know what I'm saying. The grieving chest will find honey. Do not let the heart rot. The manic hysterical head will find peace. Do not sink into sadness. And I love this. If the way the Milky Way revolves ignores your desires for 1 or 2 days, do not sink into sadness. If the way the Milky Way revolves ignores your desires for 1 or 2 days, do not sink into sadness. All turning goes as it will. All turning goes as it will. I say to the bird, as long as spring baptizes the grass, the immense scarlet blossoms will continue to sway over your head. I say to the bird, as long as spring baptizes the grass, the immense scarlet blossoms will continue to sway over your head. Now we come to the Bush administration. Are you ready? Even if the flood of materialism drowns everything, even if the flood of materialism drowns everything, do not sink into sadness, because Noah is your captain. That shows how you can't get through life unless you know some stories. Because when you're sitting and you're all depressed, and you got to remember that your captain is Noah. Oh, that's a big help. It's worth 4 sessions with a psychologist. And it's a lot cheaper, too. Even if the flood of materialism drowns everything, do not sink into sadness, because Noah is your captain. Do not sink into sadness, even though the mysteries of the other world slip past you entirely. And people say that to me. They'll come to these and they haven't been here very long and say, I don't understand all this stuff. What the hell's going on? What are those morons talking about? Do not sink into sadness, even though the mysteries of the other world slip past you entirely. There are plays within plays that you cannot see. There are plays within plays that you cannot see. The older you get, the more you'll realize that the things you thought were finished at 30, it was just something to catch your attention. You know, you got sick for 9 months and they almost buried you, just to catch your attention, that's all. It wasn't serious. Do not sink into sadness, even though the mysteries of the other world slip past you entirely. There are plays within plays that you cannot see. And you know, every Muslim has to go to the Kaaba once in his lifetime. And you walk across the desert, usually with one or two people. Rabia, who is the great Rumi among the women, Rabia went there alone with her donkey. And in the middle of the desert, the donkey dropped dead. And Rabia kicked the donkey and said, "Come on, get up, we're going to the Kaaba, you idiot." And the donkey stood up right away, and off they went. When you're lost in the desert, full of longing for the Kaaba, and the Arabian thorn bush pierces your feet, do not sink into sadness. When you're lost in the desert, full of longing for the Kaaba, and the Arabian thorn bush pierces your feet, do not sink into sadness. I love this. Although the way station you want to reach is dangerous and the road and the goal distant, do not sink into sadness. All roads have an end. Although the way station you want to reach is dangerous and the goal distant, do not sink into sadness. All roads have an end. 2 stanzas left. God knows our whole spiritual state. God knows our whole spiritual state. Separated from Him, capitalized, and punished by rivals. I don't know what that means, but there's 2 things that happen. One, you get separated, and the second thing is that people start to betray you, and it's a hint to you to commit suicide. Then you have to say, "No, thank you very much. Good idea, but..." God knows our whole spiritual state. Separated from Him and punished by rivals, still do not sink into sadness. God is the one who changes conditions. God is the one who changes conditions. O Hafez, in the darkness of poverty and in the solitude of the night, as long as you can sing and study the Quran, do not sink into sadness. That's called "Do Not Sink Into Sadness." I titled it myself. All right. Did I say I'd do 3? Have I done 3? Yeah. Okay, good. All right, so...
What? Oh, okay, I have to mention that.
So, I want to do one poem of William Stafford. Bill came so many times to these events. How many of you remember Bill Stafford? Yeah. And this is a book you should get. It's selected poems called "The Way It Is." And how many of you in this room have read one poem of William Stafford? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the rest should do some more. Do it. He's a mysterious character. God knows where he came from. But I think when he was 15, from a little family out west, he became a conscientious objector in the Second World War, and they stuck him in the can for a long while. They call him out only to fight fires. You're not worth anything, maybe you can burn up. But they enjoyed it a lot. Anyway, so Bill just died a few years ago, and I wept and wept when he died. This is probably his most famous poem. Sometime when the river is ice, ask me what mistakes I've made. Don't do it all the time. Sometime when the river is ice, ask me what mistakes I've made. I don't know why that's so funny. Just don't come up and say to your friend how many mistakes you made. Got to wait for the right moment, when the river is ice. Sometime when the river is ice, ask me what mistakes I've made. Ask me whether what I've done is my life. Others have come in their slow way into my thought, and some have tried to help or to hurt. Ask me what difference their strongest love or hate has made. Others have come in their slow way into my thought, and some have tried to help or to hurt. Ask me what difference their strongest love or hate has made. I will listen to what you say. You and I can turn and look at the silent river and wait. You and I can turn. So they're going to ask him what mistakes he has made. And so he says, well, let's just stand a while and look at the river, shall we? I will listen to what you say. You and I can turn and look at the silent river and wait. We know the current is there hidden, and there are comings and goings from miles away that hold the stillness exactly before us. What the river says, that's what I say. What the river says, that's what I say. So, yeah. One more poem, Bill, is all right for you? One home. Mine was a Midwest home. You can keep your world. Mine was a Midwest home. You can keep your world. Plain black hats rode through the thoughts that made our code. We sang hymns in the house. Our roof was near God. The light bulb that hung in the pantry made a wan light, but we could still read by it the names of preserves, jams, outside the buffalo grass and the wind in the night. A wildcat sprang at Grandpa on the 4th of July while he was cutting plums bushes for fuel before Indians pulled the West over the edge of the sky. To anyone who's looked at us, we said, my friend, hiding the cut of a thought, we would say, hello. But plain black hats rode the thoughts that made our code. The sun was over our town. It was like a blade. Kicking cottonwood leaves, we ran toward storms. Wherever we looked, the land would hold us up. I don't like that poem very well, but I like the last line. Wherever we looked, the land would hold us up. All right. Shall I quit reading poems? I guess so.
Yeah.
One more. Seems to me we had this morning. If you don't know the kind of person I am, and if you don't know the kind of person I am, and I don't know the kind of person you are, a pattern that others made may prevail in the world. And following the wrong God home, we may miss our star. For there is many a small betrayal in the mind, a shrug that lets the fragile sequence break, sending with shouts the horrible airs of childhood, storming out to play through the broken dike. And as elephants parade, holding each elephant's tail, they did that in small towns like in Indiana and stuff like that. The circus would come to town to advertise it. They'd parade the elephants through the street. They did that when Bill was a boy. And as elephants parade holding each elephant's tail, but if one wanders, the circus won't reach the park. I call it cruel, and maybe the root of all cruelty, to know what occurs, but not recognize the fact. I don't know what that means, but to know what occurs, but not recognize the fact. So I appeal to a voice, to something shadowy, to some important region in all who talk. Though we could fool each other, we should consider lest the parade of our mutual life gets lost in the dark. Lest the parade of our mutual life gets lost in the dark. For it's important that awake people be awake, or a breaking line may discourage them back to sleep. The signals we give, yes, or no, or maybe, should be clear. The darkness around us is deep.
That's the one.
That's the one.
That's the one.
All right. Now, so this is a little thank you to the fathers, is that right? Some of the older brothers. But now we got a younger brother here with us. This is Melodoma. Came from Africa years ago. Thank God he hasn't gone back. He goes back sometimes. But he's adopted this miserable country as his. And he's still smiling. Look at that. You have to have a good, long family background to keep your smile.
A good sense of humor.
So Melodoma has been with us many times, and it's a great honor to have him back again. What's the last book you did? What's the name of that one?
I think it's Healing Wisdom of Africa.
Do we have any copies here?
No, we have some, but I don't know if it's the first book or the second one. I know that Paul was able, they're not in print anymore, so there's still a few floating around.
Yeah.
We found some somewhere, but I don't.
Did you?
We'll have some in the bookstore later.
Okay. So I love this man and I admire him tremendously. And I feel it's an honor that he agrees to come and talk to us.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.